Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Jorge Amigo, and I'm the head of cultural programming for the Vancouver Public Library. I'm going to be your MC this evening. We are here today to introduce the 2022 Indigenous Storyteller in Residence, Eden Finde, and to celebrate her multiple talents. Now, we're doing this in front of a live audience here of Eden's friends, and we're also at the Central Library tonight, but we're also streaming it online for the entire world to watch. So thank you, everyone who's joining online. Now, this event, I'm going to just explain the format, is going to be an evening in 3 acts. So first, Eden will be reading a story. Then she's going to be performing an original song. And then she's going to have a conversation with me about her plans for the residency. So just so you know, we're going to have 2 intermissions between these acts so that we can rearrange the room around here. So for those of you watching online, we're going to put an intermission slide so you can rest your eyes and take a little break. And for those of you in this room, well, you'll get to see what we do in the intermission. Now, speaking of online, I want to say we're very happy to be joined by the Carnegie Cultural Sharing Program, as well as by Kelly White, who is the founding board member and the co-captain of IndigiNow and the Intergovernmental Indigenous Elder Advisor at Vancouver City Hall. So thank you so much for joining us. So without further ado, let's get started. I am honored to introduce Carleen Thomas from the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, who will be sharing a protocol welcome this evening.
Osiem ni siaya, ay tanishkwalawan, kwatsi kwatsnala uhi, anta ansachalot, anta manas santalia I kwasla hotsiam, anta imeth kwathan sachalot, kwasla hotsiam, I kwat skwastemotoch, I kwat halat. Hi sepka, amit sep with wheelam, I chamatquium, I soholtmish, I slawatatama. So what I said to you in the very teeny tiny bit of my language that I know, called Hunkameetnam or Downriver Hulkamelam, my respected ones, the feelings I have inside are really good. I'm really happy to see you and to be here in person tonight. And in Coast Salish way, I introduced myself to you with my ancestral name. I carry the name Ansachalot. And in Coast Salish way, I shared a little bit of my family tree. We do that for a few reasons, but the most important is that it informs you, the audience, that I know who I am. I know where I come from. And as a Walmochta, as a grandmother, I carry that responsibility a lot more dearly these days. So as you heard, my English name is Carleen Thomas. My parents are the late hereditary chief, Ernie George, or Iggy, as his friends called him. My mom is Deanna George, and she's from the Squamish Nation. Both sets of my grandparents have passed on. My paternal grandparents are the late hereditary chief John L. George and Lillian, or Dolly George, as her friends called her. It took me a real long time to acknowledge my maternal grandparents. And I guess the older I got and the closer to being a grandmother I got, it really bothered me. So just reflecting on it, I came to realize it was the colonization of our peoples. When the colonizers came here, they took all the Indians and they stuck them on a reserve and drew a border around us and stuck a label on us and immediately set us into competition with one another. Even brother against sister because of the laws that were enforced on us. So in an act of decolonization of myself and reconciliation with my family, I am very proud and honored to share with you my maternal grandparents as the late Stan Joseph from the Squamish Nation and Caroline Need Thomas, Need Joseph, Need Trimble, and she comes from Snuneymuxw. Her mother comes from the Nanaimo people, and Kincolith. Her father comes from the Nisga'a people up in the Nass Valley. And raising my hands, it's a gesture of welcome. Hi, it's Sepka. Thanking all of you, Amit Sepwitwilam, welcoming you here to the homelands and waters of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh people. And I just want to give a quick shout out to my friends and colleagues at Carnegie and to my mentor sister, Kelly White. So I'm very happy to be here and can't wait to see how the evening unfolds. Hi, Tsepka.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're on the unceded and traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people who have been stewards and caretakers of this land for time immemorial. And I hope this evening is an opportunity to reflect on some of the colonial legacies and our future together as we reconcile that. My name is Pete Fry. I'm a Vancouver City Councillor. I'm also a board member here at the Vancouver Public Library. Tonight's program, and I am good evening, and thank you for joining us to introduce Eden Fine Day, our 2022 Indigenous Storyteller in Residence here at the Vancouver Public Library. Tonight's program, the Vancouver Public Library is delighted to introduce Eden Fine Day as the 2022 Indigenous Storyteller in Residence. Born on the Sweetgrass First Nation in Saskatchewan and raised in East Van, Eden Fine Day is an author, musician, visual artist, and proud nehiyaw iskwew, or Cree woman. She is passionate about her culture and how it places her in relationship with all other living beings, including the earth, the animal people, and the plant people. Eden expresses herself through song, fiction, creative nonfiction, and painting. Her musical career spans more than 25 years as a singer, songwriter, and guitarist. She has recorded 6 albums, including 3 with Vancouver-based rock band Vancouver. Her debut novella, Dreamwalker, is forthcoming from McKellar McMartin Publishing Group, and in her time at VPL, Eden will be working on a new solo album and a children's book. This evening, Eden will be reading her short story, Up North, about a pivotal year in her childhood when she lived in Fort St. James, British Columbia, and performed her song of the same name, and having conversation later with the VPL's head of cultural programming about her intentions for the residency. It is now my honor to introduce Eden Fine Day.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Carlene, for that beautiful welcome. Tanse wakotoin, Eden Fine Day nitsi kason. Hello, relatives and community. Eden Fine Day is my name. Sweetgrass First Nation, Ochinia. Sweetgrass First Nation is where I'm from. Newigin in Burnaby, Mekwetch. I live in Burnaby now, on the unceded territory of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam peoples. Kinanaskotamin, I thank you for joining me today. This is my story up north. I was 7 when we moved up north to a small town called Fort St. James. The memories leading up to the move are hazy, just flashes. I see the 4 of us standing in an enclosed porch in a circle, hands clasped, jumping up and down giddily, buoyed by my mother's rare joy. She had earned her teaching certificate. She had gotten a job. That was at the house on Cassiar Street, or what used to be Cassiar Street. It's a highway on-ramp now. Another flash, the front yard of a different house, this one on Adenac, maybe, or Pender. I'm in the kitchen and my mother is saying something unbelievable. She's saying that my brother won't be coming with us when we move. That can't possibly be true. I go looking for my brother. I must find out what is going on. I find him in the front yard, setting up plywood planks on concrete blocks, and then jumping on the wood to break it. He seems incredibly upset. I can feel his pain. I watch him quietly, worriedly, as he carefully places one end of a piece of plywood on the concrete block and then jumps on it, smashing his boot through the tender, vulnerable center. The wood splits under his weight. What's wrong, I ask, but he doesn't respond. My question is a tiny moon, and his rage is the sun. I've been eclipsed. I've never seen him this angry. He repeats the move over and over, set up the wood, jump on it, break it. All the while he's mumbling to himself. I catch snippets. Hate her, wish she was dead, I'll kill her. He is pretending that my mother is the wood, I realize. He hates her. He hates her, I realize, because she doesn't want him to come with us. She has told him he can't come. The enormity of it all won't hit me for decades, until after he is dead of a drug overdose. And my sister is on the streets. And I am the sole survivor. of this scrappy band of misfits. My mother is kicking my brother out of his home at the age of 13 because she's becoming a high school English teacher in a tiny town where there's only one high school, and he's going into grade 8, so he would be in her class, and she doesn't want to have to teach him. My mother is kicking my brother out because she is a child in a woman's body and cannot fathom how to balance the needs of her child while also taking on the challenges of her first year as a teacher. My mother is kicking my brother out because she is a terrible person. My mother is kicking my brother out because she is a single mother with no family support. Because she is suffering the effects of intergenerational trauma. Because she is mentally ill. Because she knows no other way to get through this. Because she doesn't know how to parent kids once they turn 13. I will find this out for myself when she neglects my sister and I after our 13th birthdays. My mother is just a human being who is doing her best. Or maybe not. Maybe not doing her best is the best she can do. Back in that flash of memory on that street in East Vancouver, the little girl that I used to be doesn't know what is wrong, and there is nothing she can do. As a child, I was mostly unaware of the larger forces at work in my life. I didn't know what poverty was or even really what being a single parent meant. I didn't understand what jobs were or what money was. I just lived inside of my life. It was all I knew. Children have no say in their own lives. We moved, so I went, and we left my brother behind. It would be years before we would be reunited and living under the same roof again. Fort St. James is a 10-hour drive from Vancouver. This was the 8th move for us in 5 years, but it was the only move since leaving Saskatchewan that had taken us out of East Vancouver. Without my brother, the family dynamic shifted. We also lost the circle of surrogate family that had sprung up around us in Vancouver. Family friends and friends of family who had withstood my mother's mostly insufferable narcissism in order to support us kids. My sister became my primary caregiver when my mother was MIA, which was often. It was she who made my lunches every morning. They were always the same, a dry peanut butter sandwich on brown bread with no butter. The peanut butter was the healthy kind that had no sugar or additives. A single orange, the kind with the thin skin that was difficult to peel. I hated those lunches. All around me, other kids ate white bread sandwiches with meat and mustard, and they had snacks and drinks. We were suddenly very isolated, me and Faith. That's my sister. We ate supper alone together most nights, while my mother either battled her alcoholism outside the home or her crippling depression up in her bedroom, or both. My sister's 11th birthday is one of my saddest memories from that year. Mom never left her bedroom. We went to the corner store and got a frozen chocolate McCain's cake. We ate it after supper, alone together in the living room. I felt so bad for her. I could tell she was suffering too, but I didn't know how to comfort her. I was still young and in need of comforting myself. Being the youngest child, I learned, is an immense privilege. I missed Brian. I bet my sister did too. Fort St. James was such a small town that it had only 2 schools, an elementary school that my sister and I attended, and a high school where my mother taught. Early on in the school year, I made a friend, Barbara. She was brown like me, and I liked that, although at the time I didn't understand race. She lived close to me, so every morning we walked to school together. Somehow, no matter how early we left, we could not get there on time. I remember crossing large fields and a small bridge. Each direction to and from school felt like a huge trek. We were like explorers doing our best to traverse unknown lands. I was told on numerous occasions that we were an hour and a half late. In the winter, we wouldn't get home until well after dark. The absence of my family made me more dependent on my friends. The kids in my class became family to me that year. It was at school that people welcomed me and asked how I was. It was my classmates who I spent time with, who listened to me, who talked to me. They became family since my own had become almost non-existent. One night I arrived at home, but the front door was locked. I knocked, but no one let me in. I didn't know where my mother or sister were. I sat on 3 concrete steps that led up to the door of our townhouse in the complex where we lived. There were townhouses on all sides of us and across from our front door as well. I was surrounded by people, but I was alone. I waited and waited, but no one came home. It was winter and in the north, so it was cold. I hunched over on the front steps, hands in my pockets, until it became too cold and I was forced to stand up and move around. I hopped up and down, blew on my hands, and looked around hopefully. I waited to be noticed. I was a child who didn't matter. I was a child who was already on her own. I didn't know what to do in this situation or who to turn to. Hours went by. I walked over to my neighbor's front door. I could see lights on in the kitchen and hear people talking. It sounded like they were sitting at the table eating supper. I could sense the warmth in there, so close to me. How could I get some of that? I wanted to knock. I knew they were friendly and they would let me in. I knew they had kids and would take care of me. I held up my hand to the door a few times, but couldn't bring myself to do it. I was so ashamed of having been forgotten. My mother was struggling. She found teaching incredibly stressful and got in trouble with school administration almost immediately for challenging them on their racist policies. According to her version of events, the school administration expected her to pass Indigenous kids in her classes, even if they could not read or write. She told me that some kids would arrive in her grade 11 or 12 English classes completely illiterate. She was incensed about this unwritten school policy and tried to fight back. She wanted to teach these kids and felt that the school system had failed them. But her principal would not allow her to make them repeat the grade. She was forced to pass them. This stress of this triggered her mental health and substance abuse issues. I have a memory of standing in the hallway outside of her room, just longing for her. The door was ajar, but I was too scared to go in. I stood there in the shadows, craving my mother's love and attention, but she had none to give me. She was depleted. And I had to be careful. My mother's rage was legendary, and I was actually very afraid of her. But I wanted her so bad. I had not seen her in days, had not gotten a hug from her, not had a conversation, not shared a meal. Her room was shrouded in darkness, and I could just make out a lump in her bed. I retreated, closing the door behind me. I didn't realize it at the time, but Fort St. James was a town divided. Just like so many other towns in Canada, there were deep divisions between the Indigenous and settler populations and deep differences in their living conditions. There were 2 other Native kids in my grade 2 class. I only remember one of their names, Simon. He was larger than the rest of us, and the one I remember more. The 2 boys were cousins, I think, and were dark-skinned like my dad. Their desks were pushed together and placed right next to the teacher's desk at the front of the classroom. I don't know what they worked on, but they didn't seem to be following our curriculum. They were segregated, in other words. Looking back, I can't imagine something like that being tolerated today or happening to my own kids. There was something about Simon that bothered me. He seemed smart to me. That's what it was. He seemed smart, but he was treated like he was not smart. And he played into the role he'd been given, and it bothered me. He grinned stupidly a lot. I recognized that grin even at 7. It was a defensive grin. It said, I don't give a shit about how stupid you think I am, because I've already decided that I'm a clown. It's a grin that so many young men learn. Simon and his cousin weren't included in our games or our jokes. I was having a rough time at home that year, but my experience of the class was different. Maybe it's because my mother was white or was a teacher at the only high school in that small town, but I was included. They let me in and enfolded me into their collective arms. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. I had friends who seemed like they genuinely cared about me. At a time when my family had essentially disappeared, I was cradled and loved by that class. In some ways, it felt more loving than my family of origin had ever been. But I was aware of Simon and his cousin, and I was aware that they were being treated differently, even though I knew they were like me. What were the differences between them and the rest of the class, other than that they were Indians? If I didn't have the vocabulary for it, I could feel it, and it upset me. They were outsiders. They were dark-skinned Indigenous boys, bigger than most of the other kids in the class. They might have been older. I was confused about why they were in our grade, why they were segregated, why they were excluded. It hurt. Simon grinned a lot, and it hurt. On one Friday night, I found myself in the home of some kids who lived in the apartment building across the street from our townhouse complex. There were a lot of kids there that night and no adults in sight. I don't know how I ended up there, but I remember what I saw and how it felt. It was terrifying. The parents were not at home, and I think I understood intuitively that they would not be home at all that night. 9 or 10 kids were running in a pack through the kitchen and living room and back again in a loop. They were screaming and laughing, doing laps. The youngest of the children was a toddler in diapers. They toddled over to the fridge and opened it, and a glass bottle of salad dressing fell onto the floor and broke, its contents pooling out all over the kitchen floor. The other kids didn't seem to notice or care. They kept running and yelling. It was pure chaos. I felt a deep anxiety in my chest. Who was taking care of this baby? Where were all these kids' parents? I had a sinking feeling these kids would be alone all weekend, and it cut a wound in my heart that is never fully healed. The horror of being neglected like that, unloved, unprotected, not fed, not sang to, not hugged, not read to, it haunts me still. It wasn't until years later that I thought to ask why I was there. Where was my mother? What time was it on that Friday night? Did anyone know where I was? I was like those children too. We moved again when the school year ended, my mother having been fired from her very first job as a teacher. She wouldn't work again for nearly a decade. The year after leaving Fort St. James, I came home from school to see a newspaper clipping that had been mailed to us by old friends from up there. It detailed the death of a 16-year-old Indigenous girl who had been found in the snow, frozen outside of a store in the dead of winter. She'd been left there with her pants down and an empty wine bottle beside her in the snow. At that moment, I understood that I was lucky to have gotten out of Fort St. James. The people who had power in that town did not understand what had happened at residential schools, or perhaps they never knew. I knew right then, without having the words to express it, that this girl's life was not valued because she was Indigenous, and that my life was not valued either for the same reason. I knew that Canada, society, the world, my teachers, the government, civilization, that there was a group of people who did not matter to them, who had no worth, and that I was one of those people. Years later, my brother told me about how hard it was for him to have us gone. Up until we left town without him, he had been our protector and had taken that role seriously. None of us had had a dad in our lives, so that role had fallen to him. He related to me how painful it had been for him to receive a letter from me that said, "There was a fire in Faith's bedroom tonight. Mom wasn't home. The curtain caught fire from the lamp, but we managed to put it out." I don't remember what words he used to express his feelings, what expressions showed on his face, but my impression was this: helplessness, anger, self-loathing, rage at my mother, rage at himself. I just want to share a teaching I received earlier from Carlene Thomas, the elder who gave me the traditional welcome. I was telling her how nervous I was, especially about this part of it, because I'm not really a piano player, and also every time I play music, I generally tend to forget the chords and the lyrics, and I make mistakes. And she said that one of her elders long ago told her that that was a good sign because it meant that she wasn't smutsin'. And smutsin' in her language, means like, too big for your britches. So I guess it's a good sign I'm not smutsin' right now. But also I asked for some grace because, yeah, whatever. This song is also called Up North. You'll recognize some of the themes, some of the players, some of the characters. I remember, oh, no, sorry. There we go. I remember the house we lived in. We made so okay, sorry. Sorry, the mic just messed me up. It's the mic's fault. Here we go. This is the real one. I remember the house we lived in. We moved so many times that year. You could say we were stressed out. I was old for a child of 5. Then there was my brother. He wouldn't even unpack. 'Cause he was older. And he was wiser. I remember when we moved up north. I made so many friends that year. You could say they were like family. A replacement gift for me. 'Cause then there was my mother. She couldn't barely keep up. 'Cause she was older. She was sad. Thank you.
So we're back live. Thanks everyone online for being here and for witnessing
Suffering
this.
through.
Suffering through your music, of course. Yes, exactly. Thank you. So Eden, it's an honor to be here with you tonight and to sit and have a chat and to witness all your artistic talents. Speaking of artistic talents, I want to share a little secret with the audience, which is the paintings that we have right behind us were painted by you.
Mhm.
So have you been painting your whole life?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Well, maybe I probably painted in like grade 1 or whatever.
Okay.
Back when you're allowed to.
Back when you were allowed to do
Actually, I remember in grade 5, I had like a sadistic art teacher, and I was behind in art class. I don't know how you do that, but like you have to like finish the current like art project, and I was always behind, and she wouldn't let me move on to the next one that the whole class was on until I finished that one. So I was literally behind the entire school year, and I got like a D in art. And like, honestly, that was pretty rough.
Well, are you going to show them to that old teacher and be like, look at what I can
Sure,
do now?
She would hate these, honestly.
So how did you learn? Are you self-taught? Did you just one day pick up a brush and decide you were going to be a painter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very impressive.
I don't consider myself a painter. I just try to express myself.
Hmm.
It feels good for me to get that out. And like,
Different than music?
yeah, it's like, I just love the feeling of like a paintbrush in my hand, and I love watching the paint on the canvas, and like the canvas has like tiny pores, and you can just sort of watch how the paint lands. And I love the brush strokes. And it's like, for me, it's just another form of self-expression. So I don't really try to do anything like good, because I'm not an artist. I can't draw. Like I'm not trying to compete with folks who like actually have like skill and talent in that arena. So for me, it's just like, I just express myself. So yeah.
I think a lot of us would disagree with that comment that you're not an artist.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, for me, it's all about, it's just feeling. It's just feeling, but it's just visual. Yes.
Okay, speaking of feeling, I want to go back into music, because you just played this beautiful song. And, as Pete Fry was telling us at the beginning, you have a very notorious career in music. You played music for 25 years. You had a band called Vancouver. You released 6 albums, also a solo album. And then you stepped away from music for a little bit, a little hiatus. And now you're back in this residency. And part of your plan is to release an album. So what's the importance of this residency for you? Is this album, was it one of the inspirations to apply?
Yeah, well, no, I think the album was an inspiration of the residency, actually. And I think the hiatus that you're referring to, for me, it was like a hiatus from life. Like I stopped doing everything. I didn't just stop doing, actually I started painting. It's maybe the one thing I didn't stop doing. I stopped doing music. I stopped working. I just focused on raising my kids and getting my divorce and like surviving all of that for a few years and just getting my health in order. It was like really bad. And I kind of let go of all of that, because the joy had left me. I wasn't enjoying performing anymore. I wasn't enjoying songwriting anymore. I'd sort of just grown like a jaded, I guess, or I don't know, bitter. Like I just lost that joy. But then I guess thinking about the residency, applying for the residency, I was like, oh man, I feel like creative juice is stirring again. This is exciting. I haven't felt that in a long, long time. And so I was like, 4 months, it's like a short amount of time, and I could do something that has like a start and an end, So I was like, a short like pop album. I love pop songs because they are the best songs. And I was like, like just simple, keep it simple, just make like 10 really short, like 2.5 minute, 3-minute pop songs. Like that's something I could maybe do in 4 months. So that kind of, it actually inspired me to maybe try again.
Okay, so in a way, the residency was nudged you back into creative. So you say you love pop songs. Who are you listening to right now? Who, I need to know. Who's your favorite musician?
We all know that this is a setup. I
have no idea who she listens to.
There's this Belgian pop star that I really like.
Oh yeah? What's her name?
Her name is Angèle.
Okay.
And she's a songwriter. She's not a pop star. She writes all of her own songs. She's also a producer. She's amazing. She's also piano player, which may or may not have influenced my decision to suddenly play a piano for the first time in my life.
So what do you feel when you listen to Angel's songs, and why are you so drawn to Angel?
Well, her music is amazing. Like, it's just, I am obsessed with like finding like the perfect pop song.
Yeah,
Um,
big chorus,
it
beautiful
just-
melody.
Yeah, and it's hard for me. It's hard to find like the perfect pop song, and I've been like that since I was a child. Like, I was obsessed with the 50s, the music of the 50s, and then when so I was really into like music from 1957 and 1958, and then when I started hearing music from the 60s, I was like, what is this garbage? Like, why would you take something so perfect and then put like a 20-minute like sitar solo into it? Like, you ruined it. Like, it was
Yeah.
perfect, and you
Yeah, yeah,
ruined it. So I was always just, for me, it's like, I just want that pop song. So, and Angèle, she delivers, man.
Yeah,
She delivers every time.
I agree.
And her lyrics are amazing.
Yeah,
And also,
she's
like,
amazing.
I studied French and I speak French a little bit. I understand it better than I speak it. And I lived in France for a year once. And I discovered her when I was studying French again as an adult just recently. I was like, I should like actually speak French again, because I almost was fluent at one point. And why would I let that go? Like, especially when I think the Francophone like media and the Francophone community is way less decolonized than the Anglophone. I was like, what if I could speak French and communicate about Indigenous people and ideas to the Francophone community? Maybe I should get more fluent so I can communicate in that direction. So I started studying French again, and that's when I learned about Angèle's existence, and that's just been it. I don't need anything else anymore. I just need Angèle.
Angel, that's it. So I'm curious, does having kids influence what you listen to at all? Do they bring cool music into your house? And no? You're the
No.
cool one.
My children are not cool.
Okay.
No, I'm way cooler than them. No, just kidding. No, I'm not. But they brought Minecraft into the house, which is another passion of mine now.
Minecraft, okay. Yeah, my niece is really into Minecraft. Obsessed.
It's a great game. Yeah, I
Yeah.
played a lot. Well, not much right now because I'm very, very busy. But my kids, they're not that into music. It's not their jam, from
Oh,
what
no.
I can tell. They just want to watch like YouTube videos, play Minecraft, and like collect Lego minifigures. And that's their shtick. So I respect
They
that.
sound like pretty healthy, amazing kids.
Yeah, I try not to force what I like onto them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they think of their mom being a rock star?
I don't
No.
think they think
No.
I'm a rock star.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what they think of it.
So another thing that you wanted to explore with this residency was also writing a graphic novel. And, I'm curious to know what aspect of this graphic novel writing project you want to take on during these 4 months. Are you going to be writing or illustrating or both, or connecting with illustrators? What's the story there?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure. I've written like 10 pages of something that I thought might want to be a graphic novel. I think though, all I know for sure is that it's a children's book.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's actually, I thought it could be like an illustrated children's book, kind of like Amulet, but actually I'm not sure if it might just be like a regular children's book.
Why children? What's your interest in communicating to children right now?
I feel like for a lot of adults today, I don't think there's like hope of reaching them. I think they've made up their minds and they've closed themselves off, and they've made decisions, and they're headed that direction. But I think for kids, there's still hope. Like, they're still open, and they're still being formed, and they're still deciding who they are. And yeah, so I feel like that's where I would like to focus, I guess, my attention, or if I can share anything of my life, I feel like it's kids who, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that's where I feel drawn to share my teachings.
Tell me more about that, about adults being closed off. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I mean, have you looked around?
Yeah, I know, I have. Yeah, they're harder to convince.
It's tough. It's tough out here. It's not it's a rough time.
Yeah.
People are really struggling.
The last year we've seen enormous changes in the conversation around truth, reconciliation, because of a lot of revelations that have been very painful over the last year.
Mm.
And I'm wondering, based on what you just said about adults changing,
Mm.
do you see a new reckoning in the country right now, and people maybe willing to change and open? And
Mm.
no,
No, I haven't seen a change in the conversation at all.
Mm.
I've seen a couple of news conferences and
Mm.
I've seen a lot of pain in our communities.
Mm.
But I mean, I feel like for a lot of non-Indigenous folks, it's the same. It's land acknowledgements and business as usual. I
Yeah.
don't think non-Indigenous folks are going to get it until the earth forces them to get it.
Mm.
And that's where we're headed right now. And that's not to be vindictive, and
Yeah.
the earth isn't being vindictive. The earth is going to have to protect herself though. And unfortunately, I think that's what it's going to take for people to truly understand the enormity of what we're facing.
So you think there's hope in children maybe helping us move there before the earth
You
makes
know,
it impossible for us to change?
there's so much love in children, you
Mm.
know, like I think I learned that through having kids, like, and meeting just their friends, and like, and then having friends who had kids and meeting their kids and being like, they're just such wonderful, tiny people. There's just, you know, the little kids that I know, I just love them so much and they love me so much. And I'm like, there is a lot of love in those hearts and I feel connected to them. So I'm like, these are people I feel like I want to invest in. Like I will give to these people because I feel like that's a worthwhile investment, you know, for folks who are maybe it's too late for some people. That's actually how I feel.
Connecting that to your goals in this residency and the fact that this residency even exists, are you excited about a specific aspect of it? Do you think this is an important, maybe a platform for maybe starting that change that you've been talking about?
I hope so. I mean, I am hoping to do some virtual classroom visits.
Yeah.
I am doing one in-person classroom visit at my own kid's school. I do just want to, I mean, I realize right now I sound a bit doomsdayish,
It's okay.
but actually I do hope that this is a time for us, for me to share actually some beautiful teachings that I've received and some stories from my own life and from my dad's life and my grandparents' life with kids, so that they understand more about what Canada is, what it was created from, so that actually we can all co-create something better together.
Mm.
Because I don't think Canada got off to a very good start. And I honestly don't think Canada's, like, it wasn't built on a strong foundation.
Mm.
I feel like maybe we could, with this next generation of kids, especially now that they're learning about residential schools, like, I feel like those kids are going to grow up into different kinds of adults that we could actually maybe really create something beautiful together, you know?
We need truth for that. And it sounds like your stories, your music is going to provide people with those truths. Are you going to integrate these types of messages into your album? Is that what more, I mean, it is pop songs. You said you want beautiful
Well,
pop songs, but
Yeah,
it
I have
themes.
mixed feelings about that actually,
Yeah.
because I've been saying pop songs, but there's also a part of me that just wants to do like soundscapes with like
Mm.
Cree language, or, you know, my father's telling stories, or like, I don't know, me singing in French or something, like, just like, I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to just explore too, maybe putting a bunch of different languages in it, to just be creative with it that way, which is not very pop at all.
No.
It's the opposite. It's like you can't like sing along if you don't know the language or the words, right?
Yeah. Are you planning on collaborating with other musicians as well in the scene? Is there anyone you admire?
I am terrible at
collaboration?
collaboration. I'm
Okay.
so sorry. I just
Tell us more about
I don't
that.
play well with that. I don't know.
You don't
Like
play well?
I've never really enjoyed. I don't.
Collaboration.
Yeah, I don't write songs with other folks.
Mm.
I just like bought myself a computer to like, and I'm taking a course from Berkeley Music School online to like be a, you know, to record online.
Online, yeah.
I mean, to record on by myself at home, like music engineering type thing. Because I want to just be able to do it all by myself. Because I just, honestly, I think I'm better. I'm just sort of like I get very focused and I like to just like work like that.
Makes sense. So people are probably wondering when they can listen to this music. Is the plan to have some sort of demo or an LP by the end of the residency and maybe a, I don't know,
Yeah.
listening party?
Yeah. I was thinking maybe the final event for this residency could be like a listening party of like at least a demo of all the 10 songs
Sounds great.
is the hope.
Okay. Well, we're ready to wrap up. It's been wonderful chatting with you. Thank you for sharing your wonderful music, that very powerful story, and for telling us all about your creative process, and also for bringing these beautiful paintings to us. It's been a pleasure to chat with you, but also to witness you as an incredible artist. I look forward to seeing everything you create during this residency, and I think everyone at home listening and people here in the audience are very excited to see what you come up with during the residency. So thank you and congratulations for this.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
And you're
thank you.
welcome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, this is your cue. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. If you want to watch this event again, or share it with your friends, we've live streamed it to YouTube. So we're gonna put a link in the chat where you can click on it and see it afterwards. You can share that replay wherever you want. Also, if you want to find out about the next events that Eden's going to be doing and all the programming that she's up to, we're going to share a link to the landing page of the residency on the chat as well. So you can stay tuned there and see what's coming up. And lastly, we'd love it if you give us feedback about events. So if you're online and you're sitting there, there's going to be a little link to a feedback form that will allow you to tell us how we did tonight. Your feedback is super important because as a public institution, we really want to make sure that we are listening to our audience and listening to what you need and what you want to see. So please take a second to fill that out. And that's it for me. That's it for tonight. It's been wonderful. Thank you for being here. And thank you, everyone. Have a lovely night. Thank you.